Dr. Soh, why do you think young people are being incorrectly diagnosed with gender dysphoria? And should those who are wait to get transitions?
Absolutely. There should be a longer period of time. And most importantly, there needs to be a proper assessment done. I really take issue with this narrative that children, quote unquote, know their true selves or they know their gender identity if they believe that they're transgender, or that detransition is purely due to social stigma or due to transphobia. If you actually talk to detransitioners, as I have, you'll hear the reasons as to why they have chosen to detransition, why they have regret about their decisions, in many cases having undergone medicalization. There's so many other issues that these young people are struggling with, whether it is being on the autism spectrum. They have, many of them, if not all I've spoken to, have a history of sexual trauma. They are not comfortable with their sexuality if they are gay. They may have anxiety, depression, and in some cases, as in Ryan's case, if it's a young woman who reaches puberty, is not comfortable in her body, she thinks that because she doesn't like being sexualized by society, that means that she's actually a man, or she's so-called non-binary, even though there are only two genders. Even for young women who don't like having a period, they believe that that means that they're actually a man. And I question, do children actually have the capacity to make lifelong permanent decisions about their bodies? And do they really understand what these interventions involve? I don't think they do. And I think we're doing a real disservice to young people, especially with this ideology. We see it coming into education. We see it being glorified in society, with the fact that legitimate experts cannot speak about the science, that legitimate studies cannot be done. Actual science that is correct is being suppressed, is being denied, it's being called hateful. And so people are understandably terrified to talk about this. And if you are in the field, whether you're an academic, I mean, my reason for leaving academia is because I wasn't willing to stay quiet about this issue. If you do work within, say, academia, if you're a scientist, you cannot produce any research that goes against activist narratives, or they will completely destroy you.
And what do you say to the parents of a child like Reece, who says, look, at 5 years old, he knew at the core of his soul who he was and that it was not who he had been assigned at birth? What do you say to someone like that that is truly suffering and goes through the steps in a cautionary fashion?
I think that intervention should be on a one-on-one case. So about the individual patient, it shouldn't be about activism. It shouldn't be about sweeping policy in either direction. But I feel right now, parents especially, they're being emotionally blackmailed with this narrative that unless their child transitions, that child is at a high rate of suicide, which is not true. The other thing is social transition is being sold as it's being sold by activists as being completely harmless. So this consists of a child changing their haircut, changing maybe their name and their pronouns, and dressing like the opposite sex. And this is seen as just a way for them to explore it. But the thing is, from a research perspective, social transition, even though it doesn't involve medical transition, is associated with going on to medical intervention, and from there going on, including cross-sex hormones and surgery. So in a way, it sets a child down this path because it makes it more difficult for the child to say, oh, I made a mistake. It's also very shameful for a child to have to say, I've been making everyone in my life call me this new name and use these new pronouns, and I was actually wrong about that. Children also receive so much attention and praise nowadays for identifying as anything other than their birth sex. And we see this with young people. 20% of Generation Z identifies as LGBT plus. So young people are incentivized. I don't believe this is purely due to social acceptance. There's no way that 1 in 5 young people identifies as something other than their birth sex. That's ridiculous to me. So the fact that this is being not only it's being pushed in education. I mean, that's the issue I have, is that it's not an objective approach. It's very much about there's only one right outcome. And if you don't follow that outcome, then you're in trouble.
Okay, I got what you're saying. You think it's a gateway and puts them on the path.
Absolutely.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.